Today we're diving into something called the dust that doesn't settle. We're talking about pneumoconioses, a group of lung conditions that are, well, irreversible. They're caused by something we all encounter pretty much every day, dust. You know, with every single breath you take, you're inhaling tiny particles. Could be city smog, could be dust at your job. Most of the time, your body's amazing. It filters it out, you cough it up, no big deal. But what about the stuff that doesn't get filtered out? What happens when it gets stuck deep down inside your lungs?
Well, that's exactly what pneumoconiosis is. It's a whole class of lung diseases that are caused by inhaling mineral or metallic dust that your body just can't get rid of. It's kind of like a piece of the outside world getting stuck inside you permanently. So let's break this down and look at 3 really specific examples to see how this all plays out.
First up, we've got anthracosis. This one's probably the most common. It's caused by breathing in carbon and coal particles. You know, the kind of stuff floating around in polluted city air or, obviously, in coal mines.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is the story on 2 totally different scales. On the left, that's the macroscopic view, what you'd see with your own eyes. The lungs are literally speckled with these lasting black and gray spots. But now check out the right side. We've zoomed way in, and that's where you see the real culprits. Tiny black carbon granules that have wedged themselves right into the lungs' air sacs. So what's the big deal? What does this actually do? Look, if you live in a city, you probably have a little bit of this. But when you get too much, that's when the real problems can start. Heavy buildup can actually cause some light scarring on the lung tissue. That's what pulmonary fibrosis is. And it can make it way harder for your lungs to fight off infections.
All right, next up is silicosis. And this one's different. The particle we're talking about is silica, and the body's reaction, it is way more aggressive. Instead of just kind of storing the particles, the lungs go on the attack, building these hard, scar-like nodules all around them.
And you can see the results of that fight right here. On a large scale, the lungs themselves actually get firm and lumpy. And when you zoom in, you see exactly why. The body is building these super dense, hard nodules of scar tissue, literally trying to wall off those silica particles. It's a defense mechanism for sure, but it's a pretty destructive one.
Yeah, silicosis is no joke. You see this after long-term exposure in industries like rock cutting or sandblasting. These nodules, they're not simple. They're a whole mix of scar tissue and a swarm of immune cells trying to fight back. And all this scarring seriously weakens the lung's defenses, making you much more vulnerable to infections like tuberculosis. It can even cause the linings of the lung to get stuck together.
Okay, our last one is asbestosis. Now, what makes this one so unique is the shape of the particle. We're not talking about little specks of dust anymore. We're talking about sharp, microscopic fibers, and they cause a really specific, severe kind of damage. So when you look at the lungs, they look grayish and firm, which sounds familiar, right? But here's the dead giveaway for asbestosis. The pleura, that membrane around the lungs, gets super thick. And then, under the microscope, you see something you won't find in any other condition. These things called asbestos bodies.
So, what in the world are these asbestos bodies? Well, remember those sharp fibers? They're made of something called magnesium silicate. The body tries to make them safe by coating them in iron and protein. And that whole process creates these weird, long, beaded rods that look yellowish under a microscope. It's this crazy intense immune reaction that leads directly to that dangerous thickening of the lungs lining.
So we've got carbon, silica, and asbestos. 3 totally different types of dust, and they lead to 3 very different diseases. So let's just put them all side by side for a second to really nail down the differences.
This chart really lays it all out. With anthracosis, you have simple carbon deposition, giving you those black spots. Pretty straightforward. Then there's silicosis, where the body goes into overdrive against silica, forming those hard nodules deep inside the lungs. And finally, asbestosis, where the unique fiber shape makes the body create those iron-coated rods, causing that signature thick lining. In every single case, the type of particle is what dictates how the body's going to react. So the big takeaway here is that the dust you breathe in can become a permanent part of you. And sometimes, your body's own attempt to fight it off is what causes the real damage. Now, these 3 diseases are all caused by dust you might actually be able to see. But that leaves us with one last, kind of scary thought. What about all the particles we can't see?